All righty, we are back to insider betting. We're going to be going over the UFC 304 card. We're going to start at the early prelims. We're going to talk about one fight there. We're going to talk a little bit about the prelims as well, and then we'll get to the main card because that's what the juice is. That's what we all want to talk about.
Absolutely.
But first things first, Jesse, welcome, brother. Appreciate you joining me again.
Yeah, absolutely happy to be here. And my dogs and my wife just walked in literally as we started recording, so this should be fun. Hi. Sorry, guys. You guys got to go. But yeah, no, I'm excited. This is I'm actually surprisingly pretty excited for this card. And luckily living in Los Angeles where I will not be waking up. I will not have to stay up until 5:30 in the morning like some of the fans in attendance in order to watch the fights, which is obviously a bonus. So
yeah. I you know what? I know they wanted to have it like prime time at like US time or whatever. So like the typical fans can watch as well, but I enjoy like the 2 p.m. cards.
I love it. I can keep my Saturday nights open.
I know. And you also you just get you just have your entire day dedicated to UFC and then you can still do something after. So anyway, whatever.
Well, it's weird because when it's in Australia too, they fight. It's normal pay-per-view time. And I remember when he lost to Strickland, it was in Australia. That fight was like at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. in Australia at the time. So like some of those fights were starting at 10 a.m., which is so weird, like to be fighting at 10 a.m. Very bizarre. Yeah. So, anything they got to appease us Americans on the real market time. So I'm not too upset about it.
Exactly. But anyway, let's start off with the early prelims. This is probably the craziest early prelim card or fight because this just doesn't really happen. We have Muhammad Mokaev versus Manel Kape fighting. It's the 6th ranked fighter versus the 8th ranked fighter. And it's going to be literally the 4th fight of the night. Typically, this would be a main card fight. But I know you got some predictions, Jesse, with I think it's Mokaev. This is his last fight on his contract, correct?
Well, yeah. So make sure you're checking out Fight Season Podcast. If you're watching this, check out the Fight Season Podcast. We're going to break this down into more depth about what happened here. But yeah, the fight was supposed to be on the main card, and it was moved to the prelims and then to the early prelims. And it's very confusing as to why, because of what a big fight this is for flyweight. I mean, this is potentially title eliminator stuff for who's next to fight Alexandre Pantoja. So it's a big fight. And it was supposed to be on the main card, and now it's not. Very strange, just weird circumstances surrounding this fight. So make sure you tune into that.
Yeah, but as we typically do, let's make a quick prediction here, and we'll get onto the prelims. But OV last name.
What are the odds?
To win, but
do we have them?
Yeah, let me pull them up here. I have DraftKings open, as everyone should. We got Muhammad Mokaev is a -155 favorite. Manel Kape is a +130 underdog. Am I pronouncing his last name right? I feel like I'm not, but I'm not
Manel
sure.
Kape. Yeah.
It is Manel Kape.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like spelled like Manel Kape. But anyway, what are your thoughts on the fight?
I think it's incredibly close. It's a fight in terms of fights at flyweight, this is probably one of the most exciting. It's a shame that they couldn't get Manel Kape on the press conference because he's such a character. He's sort of a hero in a lot of MMA fans' eyes because he stood up to Israel Adesanya at the last press conference that Izzy was at. It's a really tough one to gauge because it really depends on like who's controlling the action of the fight, because it's easy to take the grappler and the EV last name as I normally do, which I am taking. But I do think that Kape is he's got all the tools to be great at flyweight, and he has a lot of trouble missing weight, which is a testament to his size at flyweight. He is big for the weight class. He has trouble making weight because of it. And I do think that he has absolute knockout power for the division. I would say he has good knockout power for the division. I think the odds are correct. I like Mokaev in this one. I think it's going to go to decision. This feels like a decision fight, if I'm being. And the odds reflect it, +100 for Mokaev to win by decision. Or sorry, +100 for him to win by KO or decision. +130 by decision.
Nice. Yeah, I see you going to decision as well. But yeah, super interesting that they put on the early prelim. But I guess it's nice for us fans. We can watch it early.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe it'll reel in more people to watch the prelims. I know we joke about it. Pay-per-views are different, but on the typical cards, we don't watch the prelims. So
Yeah, but there are good fights on this prelim though.
There are, and which is why we're actually going to start there. UFC 304 is coming up, and I couldn't be more excited because Inside Fighting has finally partnered up with DraftKings. All new DraftKings customers will receive $150 in bonus bets by simply placing a $5 bet. Now, all you have to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use code Inside Fighting, place any $5 bet you'd like, and you will receive $150 in bonus bets. Thank you for supporting the show, guys. Caolan Loughran versus Jake Hadley. Caolan has been a good friend of the show. He's been on the podcast, I think, and we've just done a typical interview with him. It's been 2 or 3 times that he's been on the show in the past couple months.
Twice. He was on the Fight Season podcast, and he was also did an in-person sort of like rapid fire interview with Mike Owens recently.
With Mike Owens, yeah. So no, definitely a good friend of the show. He is coming into the fight as a -218 favorite. Jake Hadley is coming up in weight, or coming up a weight class. So it's an interesting fight. Caolan Loughran averages 5 takedowns per fight, which is just an insane amount. He lost his UFC debut and he still had 2 takedowns. He won his second fight in the UFC, which was his first one in the UFC, and he had 3 takedowns in that fight. I'm foreshadowing a little bit because I'm going to take the over on Caolan's takedowns for this fight. I'm not going to reveal what that is yet, but that's going to be on my parlay for the end of the night. But yeah, I just think coming up in weight, he might be able to kind of weight bully him a little bit, even though Jake Hadley is a little bit taller, but he's just a little bit smaller for the division. Caolan's a little bulky. So I do think that if Loughran wants to win, he'll basically just have to dominate the ground game and just avoid getting hit, because he gets hit a ton. I don't have the exact stats on me, but I think he gets hit 5 times per minute, but he's only throwing 2 per minute. So he gets hit a lot more than he hits. But Hadley hits hard, and he's in theory the better fighter as well. But I think just coming up in weight is gonna be a little bit difficult for him.
Yeah, so he was Caolan Loughran was supposed to fight Ramon Tavares. Ramon Tavares had to pull out last minute, so this is a short notice fight. This is actually my lock of the night. I think that Caolan's going to sort of I just think that he's a level above and a weight class above. At a -218, is that what I see? -218?
Yeah, -218.
I think it's good enough to bet money line here, and I'm going to lock that one up. I actually really like that bet. He's fighting essentially a hometown fight. He is from Ireland, so he will have a lot of family. He'll have the crowd support, I think, for this one. And I think that this is pretty much a lock here. But you're right, he gets hit too much. Yeah. But I know that he has been working on that. I did talk to him a little bit about just things that he's been buttoning up, and he's really been working on defense and adjusting from how he going from punches thrown at him to how he turns that into offense for himself. So I think that that's what he's really been working on. I think he's gonna show up in this fight.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do see it going to decision. I don't think we're gonna have a finish this fight. But I will correct you. Jake Hadley is from England.
So, you're right about that. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's okay. Well, maybe he's fucked then.
No. I don't think he's fucked, because I think he's gonna England's so small where the Irish fans will if they want to come support Caolan, they will come support him. And I think he will have some English support as well.
That's
but
so stupid of me. I knew that as I was saying it.
Yeah, but either
regardless,
way, Caolan,
still a lock
I
for
agree.
Me.
Yeah, I do like him a lot this fight. But going on to the next prelim fight, we got Molly McCann versus Bruna, Brasil. Molly's coming off of a win, but she was on a 2-fight losing streak before that. She is a massive favorite, a disrespectfully massive favorite, -345. Bruna Brasil is a plus 275. And I'm not saying Molly's not going to win. I just think that considering she was coming off of a 2-fight losing streak, and I believe she won by submission her last fight,
Yeah,
which is a
Deanna
good win.
Belbita. Yeah, Deanna Belbita.
Yeah.
She like dislocated her elbow.
Yeah. At minus 345, 3-1 odds is crazy. And that's actually a theme in this card. I've noticed there's a lot of really, really big favorites and a lot of big underdogs. And we do have a couple underdogs winning that we'll get into later. But yeah, Molly, she also has high volume at 579 landed per minute versus 294 per minute. Again, 3-1 favorites crazy. Bruna's got great BJJ. She might be able to control the ground a little bit. I think that Molly just being so high volume and just putting on the pressure, I think she'll sneak the win. But I'm probably not putting any money on this fight just because of the odds.
Yeah, I don't like the money line either. I will say one thing we have to note about Molly is she has moved down a weight class. She was fighting at bantamweight, and so she's moved down. And since she moved down, she's looked great at strawweight.
Yep.
She's looked awesome. So I do think that's a major factor for her, simply because she's a big girl for this division. She's got, there's like some Kayla Harrison element to it, where she's obviously not like the skilled judoku expert as Kayla Harrison is, but she is a weight class above, fighting in a lower weight class. So she's going to have some troubles making weight consistently. The weight cut is always going to be a factor for her. It's always going to be something that could potentially drain her in fights, but it's a huge advantage for her. And I think we're going to see it. I don't think that, even if Brazil gets some takedowns and utilizes jiu-jitsu on her, I don't think it's like, I just think I think Molly's too strong is my issue. I think she's just going to be too strong for her. So I think she's a lock as well, but you're right. It's not good enough odds to bet.
No.
Decision, maybe. Hometown crowd, decision.
I agree. I also think the fight's going the distance. I think it's going to go to decision. But it's going to be fun. Like the energy when Molly comes out, I think is going to be insane. I think
if she lands, she can get a knockout. By the way, I'm not sorry to interrupt you. She can knock out at this weight.
Yeah, but I think her and Paddy are big hometown favorites here.
Yeah,
and I think that's going to play a big advantage for her. But we'll see what happens. And then the final fight on the prelims, I believe, Daniel Pineda versus Nathaniel Wood. On paper, Wood has a good ground game. He's got 70% takedown, 48% takedown accuracy, takedown defense, 70%, 48% takedown accuracy, and averages 1.74 takedowns per fight. But Daniel Pineda, he will sneak a sub where you might not know it exists. He's got 19 submissions in his 28 wins. He also has 9 knockouts in there, so he's never won by decision. But I just think Wood's the better overall fighter. I think that if we keep it on his feet a little bit, that'll be preferable to him. You can see he lands 5.91 per minute with the graphic on the screen, 50% significant strikes. He's good shit. He's a minus 410 favorite for a reason. And I think that although he's got good ground game, he can't get carried away in it because, like I said, Pineda can sneak a submission from out of nowhere. So if he keeps on his feet, he can avoid that. I think we're golden. But yeah, I'm going Nathaniel Wood here.
I'm just checking something here. Plus 200 for Wood to win by decision, being that he's going up against a guy who's 28-15. He's 38. Pineda's 38 years old. Wood, I would say 1/3 of his fights are by decision. Now, obviously, he has knockout power. He has submissions in there. It feels to me like a lot of these UK fighters are going to have decision edges in these fights.
Yeah,
it's sort of how I'm reading this. And plus 200, I feel like, is the bet to make at decision for Nathaniel Wood. But you're right. If you want to sprinkle something on Pineda by submission, I don't hate that at all. I think that's a fun little sprinkle. This might be the one that has like upset potential in the prelims, especially in terms of like value for the odds. But I don't know, 8-year age gap. Nathaniel Wood's a hot prospect. It's kind of a must win for him, I would say.
Yeah.
Plus, great takedown
Yeah.
defense. Whenever you have good takedown defense against a guy with good jiu-jitsu, it's just going to be tough for him to match the volume of Nathaniel Wood.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think that by submission or decision, I don't know if you have the odds pulled up for that, but I think that would be
Yeah,
a good shot for Nathaniel Wood because Pineda
there.
loses 80% of his fights by submission or decision.
It's really interesting because normally you'd see by decision plus 200, by submission plus 1,000, by knockout plus 500, something like that. Like it's sort of
Yeah.
separate, but he's such a well-balanced fighter that they're all pretty close. Plus 175 for KO or TKO, plus 300 for submission, plus 200 for decision. So you could
Yeah.
pick your poison of how you
Yeah.
think Nathaniel Wood's going to win this fight.
Yeah, I would sprinkle a little bit on both, because they have those on DraftKings. They have the submission or decision, and then they have the knockout or decision. I don't know what the
So
odds are on both of those, but you
if
could
you
probably
do that, they're all negative odds. Negative
they're
minus
negative odds.
110 submission or decision, minus 110 KO or submission, minus 200 KO or decision.
Okay, so the odds makers like the KO or decision. I think that's where they're
Yeah,
leaning towards.
which is why
Yeah,
I'm going decision outright.
yeah, nice,
So
interesting. We'll see what happens, I guess.
yeah,
But the first fight of the main card, Giga Chikadze versus Arnold Allen. Chikadze fights like once a year, and I
yeah,
think it's gonna be 11 months since his last fight. Arnold Allen, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but he's lost to Movsar Evloev and Max Holloway, which are two extremely respectable opponents and two opponents you'd almost expect him to lose to, right? So you can't fault him for that. Prior to that, he was 19-1. I don't know how big of a fight streak or a win streak he was on. But Allen has wins over Calvin Kattar, Dan Hooker. Chikadze's most recent loss was against Calvin Kattar. I'm leading Arnold Allen. He's minus 218 favorite. They're both pretty low volume, so it's probably going to be a somewhat boring fight. It's probably going to go to decision. I think because they're lower volume, the rounds might look closer than people might expect them to, because I think one moment can change the entire round. And I don't think we'll be getting a lot of moments. So it comes down to one moment per round. But anyway, yeah, I got Allen here.
Arnold Allen all the way. This is a must win for Giga if he wants to be considered a potential title threat. He got pasted in his last fight against Calvin Kattar, just got beat up. He's had some trouble staying healthy. Virtuoso kickboxer. So he is a knockout threat the entirety that he is in the fight. Which is why I think that Allen's going to be implementing a lot of ground attack, a lot of takedowns into this fight. I just think he's a more complete fighter. He has more in his tool bag where he can definitely stand and bang with you, but he's not going to want to do that too much with Giga, especially Giga's shown major flaws in his takedown defense and his ground game. And I just think that just heavily favors Allen, hometown crowd, all of the above. And plus, those fights that you mentioned with Holloway and Evloev, like he could have won both of those fights. That Holloway fight was really close. I think it was like 48-47 on like every judge's scorecards. Maybe there was a 49-46 in there, but he had some moments to win that fight. And that Evloev fight, I think that there's an argument that he won it, but also that he got screwed on a ruling that's been changed. We're going to talk about it on a fight season that, because of the grounded opponent rule with Evloev having his hand on the ground, Allen hit him with a knee while Evloev's hand was on the ground, which to me I think it was actually a clean knee and he got screwed on the rule. Even if you were interpreting the rule properly, he still got screwed. So I think he actually should have won that fight. So I think Arnold Allen is just levels above Giga right now. And I think at minus 210, I think that's a good enough money line bet.
Yeah.
Decision feels the way to go once again here.
I agree. I also think it's going to decision. But minus 218. I'm taking Arnold. I think him just staying active is what puts him over at the very least, But anyway, next fight is one that feels like it. Well, this is the casual in me.
Mhm.
Doesn't come out often, but it does come out. I don't know either of these guys. You know, I did my research. I looked into them. This feels like it was probably it was a prelim fight, and it got bumped up to the main card when Manel Kape and
Muhammad Mokaev,
Muhammad
correct.
Mokaev got
This is
bumped
the
down.
fight. Yes, this is the fight that's replacing it.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one. I think from what I've seen, we kind of have like a striker. Well, they're both strikers. Like Christian Leroy Duncan, he's minus 135 favorite versus Gregory Rodrigues being plus 114. Duncan's got 8 knockouts in his 10 wins. Gregory's got 10 KOs in his 15 wins. Both 4-5 in their last 5. Both on a 2-fight winning streak. Odds makers love the KO, just KO. It doesn't matter who wins. For the fight to end by knockout is minus 150. So Rodrigues is the better grappler with 2.46 takedown average and 100% takedown defense, but he also gets hit quite a bit at 5.3 strikes absorbed per minute. And I think with Duncan's power, he's going to just kind of piece him up, and we're going to see a knockout in this fight.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I don't want to bet on it even. I'll be quick. I like Gregory Rodrigues because we just interviewed him. We just posted an interview with him, and he's stepping in on short notice for this fight. I forget who he's replacing, but he's stepping in on short notice. Everything's kind of favoring Leroy Duncan here a little bit. He's from England too, and 8 of his 10 wins are by knockout. Rodrigues has been knocked out 3 of the 5 times he's lost. I think you mentioned that. Yeah.
No, that part I didn't mention. That's a great stat to bring up.
But you know, he does have wins over Brad Tavares and Dennis Tululin, who I have no idea who that is, but Brad Tavares is good. He's you know, he's really known. Rodrigues is really known. His nickname is RoboCop, but he's known for having one of the worst cuts you'll ever see on his brow. It was like one of the nastiest cuts ever, and then he still pieced together a win. That fight probably should have been called. Is the thing. It should have been a TKO loss, doctor stoppage, because of how nasty the cut was. But he gutted it out and he got the win. I forget who that was against, to be honest. That might have been, I know it was at the Apex. But, yeah, I like Leroy Duncan here. 8 knockouts of his 10. Feels like the bet. And what's the value on that? I'm curious.
For him to win by knockout, I'm actually not sure. I just know that it's minus 150 for the fight to end by knockout, and I think that's a great bet.
Yeah, plus 140. Way. Plus 140 for him to win by knockout. That seems
that's
like
cool.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. So
that seems safe.
It's that close that you could technically just go money line with him too, if you really wanted to. But who knows?
We'll see what happens. But yeah, one guy's 80% for winning by knockout on his wins. The other guy is 60% for getting knocked out on his losses. So when you add the two together, I think it equals knockout.
Yep, I agree.
But feature fight of the night, and I have to apologize, Mr. King. I got an error in the graphic.
Yes,
it is King Green now, not Bobby. So that's my apologies. He went to the legal name change. Paddy the Batty versus King Green. Minus 120s for Green, plus 100 for Paddy the Batty. Paddy is on a massive win streak. I don't know how many fights he's on right now. He's on like 5 in the UFC, I think, and then looks like 2 more before that. So 7-fight win streak. Yeah, it's hard to go against King. They're both high volume strikers, 645 versus 513 landed per minute. I think that Paddy might kind of go to what he's good at, even though he hasn't been really using it much lately, but I think he's going to grapple. And I think he's just going to take him down and try to control it, which could be good for him. Although King has great defense at 74% versus 56%. But honestly, like this fight being so close, this is probably the closest odds on the card at minus 120 plus 100.
Yeah.
And I think the home crowd advantage for Paddy is going to be so massive. Although it might not play that big of a factor for King. I don't think it'll affect King as much, but I think how much is going to level up Paddy is going to outweigh that, you know? So I am taking the underdog. I think it's Paddy the Batty. He's the younger fighter. I hate going against King. It's probably going to go to decision if Paddy's going to win. If not, it's probably going to go by knockout to Bobby, just because Paddy likes keeping his chin up. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But those are my two bets there. No,
that's what I was going to say.
You.
Is this is one of those fights where I almost need to see the first 30 seconds of the fight before I know exactly what it is that I'm betting here, because I feel personally like this is Paddy all the way. Like these are the best odds you're going to get for a hometown kid on a win streak like this. He's fighting to get into the rankings, hot prospect, huge momentum on his side. The UFC wants to push him. All of those things are working in his favor. And he's just it's a split favorite betting situation. It's 100 and 100 essentially, right? It's basically as close as you can get. Yeah. Other than minus 110 each, this is the closest you can get. I think Paddy, it's really just a matter of if Paddy doesn't leave his chin up and decides that he's not going to try to box with Bobby Green, because Bobby Green throws punches at weird angles, and that's a nightmare for Paddy Pimblett. We've seen him get hit so many times from just bad boxing defense that if I see him like shooting and going for it like in the first 30 seconds, and he's like, okay, I'm going to try to grapple and I'm going to try to backpack this guy, because Bobby Green has been submitted multiple times before where he's gotten backpacked like that. That to me is like, oh, this is a clear bet on Paddy situation, especially at plus 100. I think this is like probably one of the better odds you're going to get. And it's indicative in the betting lines because as of right now, 70% of the bets are coming in on Paddy Pimblett. And that's very rare for a fight that is like literally even odds. So I really like Paddy in this situation. I really like him. Plus 450 by submission, I have to take very seriously because Bobby has been submitted, because Paddy is a submission chaser. And if he can get on top of Bobby in like the early rounds and backpack him, I could see him definitely getting like a rear naked choke finish in this fight. I can see how it's going to happen. So, but I have to see the first 30 seconds. I mean, no disrespect to King Green, but like Paddy cannot try to box with him because Bobby will just piece him up all fight. If that doesn't happen, Paddy Pimblett all the way.
I agree. Yeah, like Paddy has shown to be a great striker, but he is, like you said, he chases a submission, and just know who you're up against. Don't try to outdo him. He will outstrike you. So just stick to what you know you're really good at. You know,
good striking, and what he's bad striking defense. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Yeah.
Co-main event, which is I actually didn't know this, but it sounds like the UFC typically does their cards based on the weight class. So the heavier the weight class, it'll be higher up in the rankings. But because this is an interim title fight, they put it as the co-main event and not the main event. Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blaydes. We've seen it happen. We don't know anything of how that fight would have gone because it ended 15 seconds into the fight with Tom Aspinall blowing his knee out. Aspinall has 11 KOs and 3 submissions in his 14 wins. And Curtis Blaydes has 13 knockouts and 5 decisions in his 18 wins. Curtis Blaydes' most recent loss was against Sergey Pavlovich, and King Green's, and Tom Aspinall's most recent win was against Sergey Pavlovich to win the interim belt, right? So if that says a little bit, sure. I think Blaydes has great wrestling, but I saw a stat today that he hasn't attempted a takedown in 3 years, which is crazy. Blaydes' win over Gelton Almeida also, like, in my opinion, was not that impressive. I think it was more so on Almeida freezing up as opposed to Blaydes outfighting him. Because I think I don't remember if it was the second round or third round knockout, but the rounds before that, Almeida was just, not ragdolling him, but just on him, the entire time. And then he goes for the takedown, and then he gets stuck in the position with his head down, and Blaydes just hammer fists him and ends the fight, right? I don't know. I'm going Tom Aspinall here. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that let me put it this way. Aspinall absolutely needs to win the fight. I mean, this is a huge risk because he already won the interim belt. He really shouldn't have to be fighting this fight. Let's just be honest. This is not a title unification fight. This is still the interim title. Yeah. If he loses, Curtis Blaydes becomes the guy that would have to fight John Jones if UFC were actually able to make that fight happen. So he needs to win this fight. Blaydes, you mentioned how he beat Jailton Almeida. That was an example of Almeida having one-dimensional game plan, one-dimensional fight style, where he was winning the fight and then just goes for the takedown and leaves himself open for elbows to the head and punches to the head right there for Blaydes. Blaydes is excellent. Don't get me wrong. He's an excellent fighter, excellent wrestler, but Tom Aspinall has all elements of the game that Blaydes has, but he's better in all of them. And he's 5 times the striker that Blaydes is. He absolutely should win this fight. It's just on speed alone. The only way I see Aspinall losing this fight is by making some mistakes on the feet that leads to some takedowns where Blaydes can really utilize his wrestling on him. That's where I see him losing the fight. And like, because Blaydes can win in any scenario where he's on top. By knockout, it feels like the bet to go because it's just not good odds, but I didn't even pull it up because to be honest, I'm not even going to bet on it. You're just not getting good odds. I'm pretty sure it's like a minus 180 or a minus 200 that he would win by knockout. Yeah, minus 175. So it's like, it's not a good bet. I would just put him in a parlay.
Yeah, better than the minus 395 odds that you get,
Yeah.
just straight up money line.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think we'll see a Tom Aspinall win. Curtis Blaydes has been, I've seen like training his cardio very well.
Yeah.
They've mixed that into his training, so he can go the 5 rounds and he can last on the ground.
Yeah.
Even if he's just got to take it
I think he's a Colorado guy. I think he trains with what's his name? Dominic Reyes. I'm pretty sure they train together. So
I believe so.
Yeah.
Colorado sounds right because I know they've been training at higher altitude on his cardio days because of that. So
that's what's going to win him the fight if he can do it. I still think Aspinall just he's going to knock him out. That's what I think is going to happen. Yeah.
I am sprinkling a first round knockout personally.
I think that's the way to go because Aspinall, he has like the shortest fight time in UFC history. He averages something like a minute per fight, something crazy like that. So
yeah,
he doesn't stay around long, and he's a one-punch guy. He gets one on you. Blaydes has been knocked out before. His chin's been suspect, so I would take that. First round knockout.
And just the volume he throws. That's why he's a one hit will knock you out, but he throws
this is crazy.
Punches per minute.
This is crazy. Tom Aspinall to win by KO or TKO in round 1, plus 110.
Yeah, like that's crazy. Like that's basically even odds.
I would take round 2, plus 550. I think that's maybe Blaydes can wrestle him a little bit, and then it'll get him in round 2. I agree, though. It feels like a round 1 knockout. It does. It really does. Yeah.
Main event. Leon, Rocky Edwards versus Belal. Remember the decision, Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
It's no secret. I don't love Belal. I think some people are like starting to like him again. I don't know. I think he's a boring fighter. I think I don't want to say it's going to be the worst thing for the UFC if Belal becomes champion because like from our perspective, all like us North American, like American and Canadian fans are not going to be happy with Belal winning. But you have to keep in mind the millions of Muslims around the world who will be happy to see Belal Muhammad win. And so the loss in kind of viewership from one side of the world is kind of gained back by the gain of viewership from the other side of the world, you know? Belal said it himself. He dreams about the fight going to decision.
So weirdest. That was like the weirdest comment ever. He was like talking about how he's gonna beat Leon, and he did 50-42s him, is what he says. It's like, dude, that's like you want to endear yourself to fans? Come on, that's not how you do it.
Somehow, and this was like one of the craziest stats I've seen. I don't know how Belal lands more strikes per minute than Leon. He's higher volume on paper. I think Leon just has more power and just picks his shots better. He also has great takedown defense. It's kind of funny because it's kind of like a striker versus grappler matchup. And then when you look at Leon's last 3 fights, they've been against grapplers. So he's been working on that and he's beaten them, right? There was 2 fights against Kamaru Usman and 1 against Colby Covington. Obviously, Kamaru Usman is a very well-rounded fighter. but he's got a good ground game, right? And then on Belal Muhammad's end, he has been fighting strikers. So he beat Gilbert Burns, he beat Brady. And so we've seen that he can fight strikers. We saw them fight a couple of years ago, I believe. I don't remember the exact time when they fought last. Poke ended the fight and ended in no contest. Probably saved Belal from losing from the way the fight was going. This fight, I think, obviously we've seen Leon go 5 rounds. I think that this fight probably will go to decision, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm going Leon Edwards minus 258. I would hate to see Belal win personally.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think we're going to talk about that on the podcast. But it is interesting about the strikes landed per minute because that does change my mind a little bit. But I do think Leon's going to win this fight. I am picking him to win this fight. I think that he's a great grappler too, which he doesn't get a lot of credit for. He showed some great grappling against guys like Usman and Colby, who are just relentless wrestlers. Yeah. And he really held his own. He got a submission win. Leon did when he like broke a rib, I think, and he didn't have use of like his hand. He couldn't like lift his arm, so he ended up just going to grappling, and he got a submission win in one of his fights. He's excellent all around. I'm curious, he was piecing up Belal in that first fight before the IPO cap ended, and he almost had him out on a head kick at one point. I think it was in round 1 when it happened. It's weird. I could see a situation, you're right, where this feels like it's going to go to decision and Leon wins. But I could see a situation where Leon gets the first round knockout in this fight because Belal has a tendency for some bad standing defense. And in that first fight, Belal was on the back foot a lot. Normally, he's the pressure fighter. Normally, he's the one pushing forward. Leon was pushing forward in that fight, which I think was causing some problems for Belal in terms of his stand-up defense and his ability to get takedowns on Leon. If that's the case, if we see the fight starting off that way, I could see Leon landing something because Belal's on his back foot trying to trying to shoot or something. And that Leon just has that like extra step on him of reaction time to clip him. I'm considering a sprinkle on a first round knockout here because I just think that standing wise, stand up, like this guy is like one of the best. He's like up there with Izzy. Yeah. And I just don't think Belal is anywhere close to that. I think grappling, the fight's much closer. So by first round knockout, I'm going to throw a sprinkle on it. I know that it's like I know that it's a little crazy. Leon round 1 is a plus 900, but winning method by knockout in the first round. God damn it, I had it a second ago. But plus 900 to win in the first round. I'm looking up knockout. Hold on. You can give me your take while I'm doing it.
You're good. Yeah, my take's Leon wins.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going. But Leon by knockout is plus 300. Leon by knockout in the first round is plus 1,000.
Thank you. So, okay, I would consider it only because, look, it's not likely, but I would consider a sprinkle because I do think that Leon he was piecing him up in that first round. Yeah. There's a chance it's going to happen, and Belal's been knocked out before. And Leon's knees are so dangerous that when Belal shoots, I could see Leon just clipping him on the way in. So yeah, I'm going to throw that. I will say, bet.
Yeah, I will say that although I believe that Leon was piecing up Belal in their first fight, there's been 5 fights for Belal since, and I believe also 5 for Leon since. Don't quote me on the Leon, but Belal, I'm sure. And both guys have improved. We'll see who improved more, but yeah. Although typically like when guys fight, like the first fight says a lot about them, but for the second fight, but in this scenario, I think when they fought, they were still just kind of like a sliver of what they are now. So we'll see what happens. But yeah,
agreed.
UFC 304. I'm excited for it, dude. And it's going to bring us to the parlay of the night. This is kind of definitely a riskier parlay that I'm doing compared to other weeks, but I like it. Like we said, Caolan Loughran is going up against why am I blanking on names today? Jake Hadley. And Jake Hadley's coming up in weight. I think maybe not ragdoll him, but I think he's going to throw him around a couple times. He averages 5 takedowns per fight, 3 in his last one, 2 in the one before that. Over 2.5 takedowns landed at plus 120, I think is good odds. And I can see it happening. Molly McCann versus Bruna Brasil. We talked about it going to the distance. I think it's going to happen at minus 130. And then Leon Edwards. This is kind of like the weird one I have in here. Under 84.5 strikes landed. And although I'm still thinking like the fight can go to decision, when he fought Colby Covington, I'll pull up some stats because why not? When he fought Colby Covington, it went to decision. He had 57 strikes landed. When he fought Kamaru Usman the second time, he had 120. So that's an outlier. He doesn't hit over 100 often, but clearly he did in that one. In his first fight versus Kamaru Usman, he only had 55 landed. Versus Nate Diaz, 77 landed, and all those went the entire 5 rounds, right? So he doesn't get over 85 often. I guess we'll have to see in this one. If there's a knockout win, that's even better for us, right? Like that, that's almost a guarantee, and it's possible. But I'm looking at his fights, and only twice since his first fight in the UFC, which was way back when against Claudio Silva, I think. Only twice has he had over 84.5 strikes landed. So that's where my decision came from.
I like it. I it's interesting. I actually feel like the McCann versus Brasil bet might be more of a parlay buster than the Leon significant strikes bet because the stats that you just gave me. Plus, my first round knockout bet would just totally help leg 3 there. That would solve that problem. I do think there's a chance that McCann could knock out Brasil or submit her. I do think there's a chance for a finish in that fight. So that would be. I understand why that's the bet, and the odds are indicative of that. But I do think that there's more potential for McCann to get the knockout than there is for Leon to get more than 85 strikes. I think
that's fair. I think my only
Caolan
hesitation
for 2.5 takedowns feels like a lock to me.
Yeah, which is crazy at plus 120. But with Molly McCann, my only hesitation on her going for the knockout or submission is that I think this win is crucial for her to go on a 2-fight win streak. She doesn't want to end up in the losing column again. So I'm worried she's just going to play it safe. I'm worried because, like you said, she's coming down a weight class, which means she's heavier than her opponent. We're going to see like a Caolan Loughran situation, where she might just weight bully her and just kind of hold her down. So we'll see what happens. But that was insider betting. I'm pumped for UFC 304. It's been a while from a pay-per-view. It's been a month. So happy it's back. But yeah, I appreciate you joining me, brother.
Absolutely. I'm excited. And, let's see. I'm feeling a couple of first round knockouts in our main and co-main. I'm feeling it. Don't quote me on it. But I'm feeling it.
And the night off with a bang at 5 a.m.
Absolutely. Yeah, they want to go to bed, man. They're going to be going for it. They want to go to bed. Yeah.
One of them is going to go to in the last 2 fights, one of them is going to bed in the ring, or in the octagon. So
There you go.
Anyway, appreciate you, brother. Till next week.
Peace.